The Neo Heroes are a brand new organization that wants to replace the Hero Association that Saitama is a part of. Saitama actually had a chance to join them since Genos was invited, but decided not to since he figured it would be too much work. But many former S-Class heroes have already made the switch. In total, there are 11 S-Class level characters known as Neo leaders, along with a few more that are just as strong but hold different positions. Axel was the first member of the lineup that we were introduced to. This roller skating, axe-wielding hero is a leader of a 48-man strong vigilante group known as Hunters. They were all young civilian fighters that decided to take matters into their own hands. The Hero Association made several attempts to recruit them, but most of the Hunters have lost loved ones to monster attacks and don't trust the association at all. Their recent development of housing for rich elites and the obvious exploitation of their heroes has only pushed the Hunters further away. It'll be interesting to see how Axel reacts to the overwhelming corruption behind Neo Heroes. He was able to take down a disaster level demon with help from his forces, but 5 Hunters died in the process. Assuming they make use of the Neo battle suits, the Hunters should become an even more credible fighting force. The future is now with Opera. Opera is an innovative web browser that members of our team have been using for ages. For someone like me who tends to have dozens of tabs open at the same time, the ability to separate them into islands is a lifesaver. Not to mention the fact that it lets you use emojis to easily identify them. I didn't expect to love that part as much as I do. But when you have many tabs from the same website open, it can get a bit confusing otherwise. These days, anime and manga sites tend to have more pop-ups than ever. So Opera's free built-in VPN and ad blocker are amazing tools to have. You can choose between 7 different music streaming services to add directly to the sidebar and listen to whatever you want without ever leaving the browser. The same goes for messengers like Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and many more. Opera also has a built-in AI feature called Aria. By pressing tab, Aria can summarize an entire page. Aria can also reverse image search, answer any questions you might have about an image, and even generate them from scratch. If you're looking for a web browser that always provides meaningful updates, try Opera for free with the link in the description. Moving on, we have Suiru. This master martial artist decided to become a hero after fighting Saitama in the finals of the Super Fight tournament. Before then, Suiru won the tournament 4 times in a row. He then decided to take it easy for 3 years, which is how long it's been since Saitama fought Crablante and the Hero Association came to be. But Suiru decided to give the tournament another chance after seeing Garo's performance the year before. Unlike most characters, Suiru was actually able to tell that Saitama is really strong just by looking at him. Although he doesn't know the full extent of Saitama's strength, someone getting that sort of impression from the guy is very rare, no matter how strong they themselves may be. This perception of his was even extended to monsterized Garo. When Suiru saw him on TV, he didn't feel much killing intent at all, despite believing Garo was just a monster. Suiru is a naturally laid-back kind of guy, but facing Saitama brought him a sense of passion that he has never felt before. Impressively, a direct hit from Saitama's backside was not enough to knock him unconscious. But he also knew that if Saitama didn't hold back against him, he would have been crushed like a bug. Either way, Saitama was the very first person to ever beat him. Then the bald hero saved him from Bakuzan and Goketsu, 2 dragon-level monsters. That made Suiru reconsider his poor outlook on heroics. He even asked to become Saitama's disciple, but was rejected. Despite his injuries, Suiru did not stop training while he was in the hospital. He refused to just lie around while heroes were fighting the Monster Association. But when some of his fellow martial artists considered joining the fight when things took a bad turn, he had enough sense to dissuade them. His admiration for heroics isn't limited to Saitama either. He respects heroes like Snek and Lightning Max due to their strong resolve and willingness to help others even at their own expense. They were the first ones to stand up to Goketsu and lost miserably. Yet they didn't hesitate to lend a hand against threats that could brutalize S-Class heroes. Neo Heroes places a big emphasis on the virality and influence of its members. Aside from being a 5-time champion and his popularity with the ladies, Suiru has the respect and trust of his fellow martial artists. Suiru and his sister Suhiko were taught the Void Fist fighting style by their late grandfather Suicho from a young age. Instead of inheriting their grandfather's dojo, for now, Suiru decided to leave it to his sister. His plan is to become a hero so he can make the Void Fist as famous as the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist that Bang and Garo use. By the time Suiru got out of the hospital, the Neo Heroes were quite the trending topic. Since Saitama is with the Hero Association, he still planned on going there. But when he learned that a pretty girl was a member of Neo Heroes, he decided that checking out the rival organization might be worth his time. Once there, Neo Heroes had him try on their brand new battle suit. He accidentally broke the expensive suit by flexing his muscles and is stuck working at Neo Heroes until he's able to repay them. But you shouldn't feel too bad for him. This was probably just karma for leaving his little sister with his hospital bill. But if Suiru's goal is to follow in Saitama's heroic footsteps, by accidentally breaking his organization's state-of-the-art technology, he is already on the right path. And although he hasn't been with them for long, Suiru is already a bit disappointed by the Neo Heroes since they don't seem to be anything like Saitama. Next up, we have the girl that made him consider joining Neo Heroes in the first place, Wavy Gyaza. This character is almost like a three-way fusion between Tatsumaki, Genos, and Sweet Mask. Like Sweet Mask, Wavy Gyaza is an idol hero. She is especially popular with teenagers, has a die-hard fan base, and is known for being a great singer. From what we've seen thus far, the idol industry in One Punch Man is very competitive. Thanks to Sweet Mask's example, talent agencies have begun turning their clients into professional heroes. The bubbly boy spent a whole year training just to become C-class heroes. And even then, only 2 out of 7 made it to that level. Sweet Mask himself is very against this sort of mass production of frauds. And in turn, Wavy Gyaza fully intends to surpass him. To do so, she went on hiatus for 6 months and became a cyborg like Genos. These enhancements have made her strong enough to defeat a disaster level demon with a single hit. Being able to solo a disaster level demon is enough for someone to qualify as an S-Class hero. That is the same disaster level that Mosquito Girl had at the beginning of the series. But without Saitama's help, Genos would have been destroyed by the big bug. 71% of Wavy Gyaza's body is artificial. That is 11% higher than the usual limit of 60%. That sort of modification ratio is very dangerous and can drive a person insane, which means that Wavy Gyaza's willpower is exceptionally strong. These modifications also connected her brain to the main data server used by Neo Heroes. However, these changes seem to have also taken a toll on her body. Wavy Gyaza has a bit of a heating issue, one that requires her to rapidly consume liquids in order to cool down. Otherwise, she is prone to collapse. Although she's an S-Class level character, this sort of glaring weakness is pretty unusual. Unless we're talking about King, I guess. As for the source of Wavy Gyaza's cybernetic modifications, the organization are the most likely culprits. We know that they are very interested in the collection of battle data and appear to be closely connected to Neo Heroes. And they are far from the only ones. The organization provided support to the Monster Association in the form of G5, a robot that, despite not being an executive member, was too much for even the tech-savvy Child Emperor to defeat. They also backed Narinki, one of the Hero Association's biggest sponsors, by way of battle suits for his private squad. Those suits were an improved version of the ones stolen by the Paradise Group at the beginning of the series. The special Neo Heroes battle suits are practically identical in appearance, so it seems like the organization is only becoming more and more bold as time goes on. As for her similarity to Tatsumaki, although it hasn't been outright confirmed just yet, the way Wavy Gyaza flies is exactly like that of an Esper. We know that Tsukuyomi has been creating artificial Espers for a while now, so maybe they're involved. From there, we have Raiden. This former Super Sumo champion has an undefeated record of 700 victories. That is a ridiculous stat for just about any sport. But Super Sumo requires its participants to be at least 9'8" and 881 pounds. Monsters aside, Raiden is the only character we've ever seen be that big. Even Super Alloy Darkshine, the former tallest hero, is only 7'8" and 551 pounds. The idea of there being multiple sumo wrestlers of that size is downright absurd. Just a slap from this guy is enough to crush large monsters. According to Neo Heroes, Raiden's combat abilities are beyond those of S-Class heroes. Based on the general expectation of S-Class heroes we mentioned before, I imagine this means that Raiden can reliably defeat dragon-level monsters on his own. They say that his strength defies human understanding and surpasses the limits of all living creatures. Taking the accompanying visuals into account, this appears to be relevant to animals and not monsters. The strongest animal on Earth is the African bush elephant. They are able to lift more than 13,000 pounds. Raiden decided to test his strength against Darkshines, but was disappointed by the former hero Sari's state. This character seems to be based on Raiden Tamemon, one of the greatest sumo wrestlers of all time. He was active from the late 18th to early 19th centuries and still holds the record for top division win ratio in history, a record that is unlikely to ever be broken. Speaking of records, there's even a record of Ragnarok character based on him. The resemblance is truly uncanny. Now, although they didn't end up recruiting Saitama, Neo Heroes has its own bald hero in the form of Infelsinave. This mysterious figure is the founder of an entire faith. The Church of Otherworldly Reincarnation has recently amassed 3 million followers. But this is not the first religion we've seen with this sort of agenda in this series. The ancient worshippers of the mysterious being known as God shared a similar message with one of their murals. Then there's Zaydatz, one of the less impressive members of the Neo leaders. He is a major investor behind Neo Heroes that owns many companies. He has a follower count of over 40 million and looks down on others for being poor. Zaydatz has little to no field experience, but most of his donations to Neo Heroes go towards his own equipment. He's pretty much Batman if being rich was the only thing he had going for him. A is a former hitman with a special A-class bounty. It's unclear what exactly that means, but we already have a number of S-Class criminals, so it's hardly that impressive. When it comes to hitmen in One Punch Man, the most we've seen from them comes from the extra chapter, King's Weekend Like Weekday. 5 hitmen were tasked with eliminating King in a diner, but were ultimately defeated by his words alone. Apparently, A's combat skills are effective against monsters, so maybe he brings something especially unique to the table. Continuing with the trend of criminals, we have Ryumon. This crime boss is the leader of the 400-man strong Ryumon gang. As an executive of the Hero Association, Mr. McCoy has been running an illegal hero gambling ring. This is where sinister elites bet on which hero will manage to defeat an intentionally released monster. It turns out that Ryumon is the one who taught Mr. McCoy everything he knows about running such an operation. And this was for the sake of them later flocking to Neo Heroes to do the same thing on an even wilder level. Instead of just betting on heroes, he allows their clients to bet on monsters too. Interestingly, he spoke about this with Mr. McCoy over the phone while several other Neo leaders were in the room. A, Axel, Wavy Gyaza, Zaydatz, and Infelsinave were all present and should have easily overheard him. Considering Axel is so against corruption, and even called Ryumon out to say that his past crimes cannot be erased, this is a pretty strange inclusion. If Axel is truly as genuine as he seems to be, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being changed later on for the volume release. Besides that, there is already some tension between Ryumon and Metal Bat. And that is not a fight that Ryumon can handle. Which brings us to the former S-Class delinquent, Metal Bat. He's joined Neo Heroes to act as Sekingar's bodyguard while he's undercover. Metal Bat's potential is staggering. For a large part of the story, Gaara was the unofficial main character of One Punch Man. He received power-up after power-up thanks to fighting increasingly difficult threats in rapid succession. The usual shonen formula. Suffice to say, Gaara is very strong. Well, Metal Bat is officially considered to be his rival. By the time they first fought, Gaara had already defeated Tank Top Master, another S-Class hero. Metal Bat wasn't able to land a single hit on Gaara. The Hero Hunter's speed and defense were too much to handle. But thanks to his fighting spirit, every hit Metal Bat takes only makes him stronger. Although Metal Bat didn't manage to hit him, Gaara admitted that if the hero managed to do so even once, things would have gone very differently. Although he defended himself with the pinnacle of defensive techniques, Gaara's bones were left shaking in the aftermath. And just when Gaara was certain of his own victory, Metal Bat moved faster than he could react and was about to end him. The only reason he didn't is because his little sister showed up and he promised to not use violence in front of her. But just the pressure from stopping his move short was enough to shatter the ground beneath them. And it's clear that Metal Bat still had the strength to continue fighting. So while Garo especially excels in speed and defense, Metal Bat's strengths are power and durability. During the Monster Association arc, we saw him team up with a monsterized Garo against Sage Centipede. At first, Metal Bat couldn't even make a dent in the thing's carapace. But moments later, after sustaining some damage, he tore off one of its pincers with a single hit. Just before then, Garo couldn't even do that with multiple hits. Metal Bat's fighting spirit is at its strongest when he has someone to protect, and that is exactly what he's been tasked to do as Sekingar's bodyguard. Furthermore, Garo somewhat owes the perfection of his fist to the resonance of power he experienced while fighting alongside Metal Bat. In turn, this explosive boost in power allowed Metal Bat to easily break Sage Centipede's exoskeleton with a single hit. But the craziest thing about all of this is the timing. Metal Bat did not enter this fight in great shape. He was being treated in the hospital after his initial run-in with Garo. Before he could be discharged, he snuck out. Then he ran all the way from S City to Z City. Then he killed 99 of the 100 Black S cells that were left out of the Platinum S fusion. With Neo Heroes, Metal Bat is back to being in good shape and is also likely to be even stronger than Garo is right now. Garo lost all the power he gained over the course of his monsterization, while Metal Bat has not experienced any regression at all. So please, put some respect on Metal Bat's name. Child Emperor is the other former S-Class hero that is now a Neo leader, but these days, he prefers to go by the hero name Wild Emperor. His classmates were making fun of his old one because its Japanese version, Dote, is a homophone for male virgin. He already had issues with the Hero Association due to the extent of their corruption, but this pushed him even further over the edge. The association doesn't let its heroes name themselves. It's why Bang went by the name Silverfang, King is King, and Genos is Demon Cyborg. But in some cases, you might end up with a silly name like Cape Baldy for Saitama. For all his genius, Isamu seemed to be the only one who was unaware of the double meaning. It turns out that his mom restricted the information thanks to parental locks, which is to say that she is probably even better with technology than him. Either way, this name issue ended up being a perfect cover story for why he switched over to Neo Heroes. He's resolved himself to becoming better than the Hero Association, S-Class heroes, and his former mentor Metal Knight, so he can change things himself. That way, heroes like Zombie Man who are serious about helping people and combating the rise of monsters can prosper. He's also equipped Sekingar with a brand new prosthetic eye and hand. These modifications allow the two of them to silently communicate without speaking. They also boast a much higher performance than the ones that were created by Metal Knight. Wild Emperor is a fan of Wavy Gyaza's music, so maybe he'll use that as an excuse to get closer to her and the truth about Neo Heroes. But her connection to their primary server will make his data infiltration harder to pull off. Super Alloy Darkshine is another former S-Class hero that joined Neo Heroes, but instead of being a Neo leader, he is currently working as a trainer. He still hasn't gotten over his ego being crushed against the Monster Association. Darkshine used to be a total wimp as a kid. He may have completely changed his physique, but under all of that muscle, his mindset remains the same. He's worried about what others will think of him and assumes that nobody will see him as a hero. Even though he's the only one with those thoughts, his perception has defined his reality. As Metal Bat put it, this is a matter of fighting spirit. It's up to Darkshine to figure things out on his own. And hopefully once he does, he'll be stronger than ever before. Elemin and Destro are two former mercenaries that are in charge of security at Neo Tower. They're not Neo leaders, but they are cyborgs with modification ratios of 95% and 94% respectively. So there shouldn't be any doubt that these two are quite strong. But when it comes to Neo leaders, their strongest member is their #1 hero, Blue. Despite only being 16 years old, power seems to run in his family, because Blue is the son of the Hero Association's #1 S-Class hero, Blast. Blue's gauntlet and eyes resemble those of his father's. He's praised for being the one to lay down the very foundation of Neo Heroes. To him, the purpose of the Neo Heroes is to show the world what real heroes look like. He speaks of serving under the banner of justice and restoring peace to society. His words suggest that he doesn't have the best relationship with his father and that he is a fairly serious person. Unfortunately for him, the world of One Punch Man has a funny way of humbling anyone with that sort of attitude. If the god of One Punch Man is as closely related to Neo Heroes as we suspect, then he is really intent on hitting Blast where it hurts. First, he took his best friend Empty Void, and now his son Blue. My question for you is which of the Neo leaders you like the most, along with which of them you think Saitama would get along with the best. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.